Hey, everybody, welcome to another new episode of Geeks from the Multiverse. Today, we are doing one of our Evolve episodes, and we are talking about burnout because burnout isn't necessarily a motivational problem. It isn't a discipline problem. It's definitely not a weakness issue. Burnout is what happens when human limits collide with systems that refuse to acknowledge them. And today, we're not fixing people, we're calling out the pressure that's breaking them.
Evolve, adapt, overcome. Power up your mind and level up your soul. It just takes one small step to be
Hey, what's going on, everybody? You know what? I love that music.
Every time, Matt.
Every time it
Every
hits,
time.
it just hits a different way. But welcome to Geeks from the Multiverse. I am one of your hosts, Grumpy Beard. With me, as always,
Captain Stash, baby. Yes. Anyways, now, so we got before we go into anything further regarding Evolve, because yes, it is our, as we used to call them, our serious episodes. We definitely want to do some call to action real quick for you.
yeah, some CTAs, if you will. And first, I do want to point out everything that you can enjoy with us is on the website, geeksfromthemultiverse.com. You can go there, you can listen to the podcast, you can listen to these Evolve episodes as one collection. You can find our merch store there. You can find my author page there, but everything is collected at our website. Even if you don't have Spotify or you don't go to Apple, you can still listen to the full podcast from the website.
Oh wow, that's crazy, Matt.
Yeah.
And then actually real quick, since I know Matt was talking about all that, I wanted to let you guys know that I am going to be participating on April 19th. The Boston Marathon is doing their Tough Rock. I know Matt has some other comments that he would like to say, but we're not going to do that right
I'm
now.
not doing that right now.
So yeah, so what I really need you guys, if you can, right, it's go on to our actual. I'm gonna post it on our Facebook page. Okay, so yes, you're gonna see what I look like. Oh my god!
Oh my God.
I know if you haven't already noticed that. So yes, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go on our Facebook page and I'm gonna basically share out the donation page that I really need you guys' help on, because honestly, it's for a great cause. Again, it's for veterans, it's for EMS, law enforcement. Again, I have a whole military side of my family is a lot of that, especially law enforcement and EMS. So really, it's just a mixture of all things. And we're doing it this year. I'm doing it with my brother, my father, as well as my wife. We have a team called Ruck of the Irish. Everyone's like, "Oh my God!" I'm like, "Yeah, I know. Trust me, it'll look nice." I said, "Once we get up there and we start doing all that stuff." But I just want to, like I said, just anything you guys can do would be much appreciated, because I am so far behind on the donations. Because at this point, what would happen is if I can't make the donations of where I'm at, basically I'm going to have to be paying for it, which is not that I don't want to pay for it. It's just a lot of money if I don't necessarily need to, pay up front. So anyways, like I said, anything that you guys can do would be much appreciated. And I just wanted to, mention that out. And like I said, I'll drop it on our Facebook page. I'll drop it on Instagram if need be, whatever, just to make it easier. But just wanted to let you guys know that now. But anyways, yes, the real quick thing I was also going to mention is we're going to be doing things differently, because again, it's crazy, Matt, that now this has been now officially 3 years.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Crazy.
I mean, granted, we're a little, I know we didn't really talk about it the last kind of couple times that we were doing it, but I mean, yeah, we've, again, February 15th is when we originally started this podcast, 2023. So now the fact that, yeah, we're basically, a month into, being in our 3 year mark, but now it's just, I still can't believe that we're still doing this. We're still talking about different things that we've been wanting to do. And here
this
we are.
is 156
I know.
for episodes, man. That's like,
And again, so when you go on the
crazy.
website, you can't tell us that there isn't content.
Oh no, there's
There
a
is
ton of
plenty
content,
of
and you can listen. You can even go on YouTube if you want. I mean, there's a link on our media page where you can go to YouTube and watch, or not really watch, but listen. But one of the things I did want to point out before we go into this burnout issue that we're going to be talking about, my book is on Amazon. I wrote Echoverse. That's my third book.
Here we go. See?
So if you want more information, I've posted a bunch about Echoverse on my Facebook page, but you can go on to Amazon. You can check it out. I'd really appreciate it, and it's a good way to support indie authors because we don't often like get a lot of recognition when we do write books. It's like, oh, Stephen King, this, or Dean Koontz, or these
Well,
other authors.
so the other big thing too, what Matt is also saying with the indie stuff is that because also right, it also helps the channel.
Yes,
It helps our channel because to hopefully help him grow and then also help us kind of grow as a whole. Because again, we're two dudes on two different mics. We can't do it all by ourselves.
listen, it's a great story. It's a great book. I mean, I know I'm a little biased because I wrote it, but it's a great story. It's a great book.
Again, it
You
was
know?
from AI, for God's sakes. The book idea was made because of an episode.
The idea was yes.
No, but what I'm saying is
Yes,
no.
yes.
What I'm saying is the idea for the book came
Yeah,
from an
we-
episode we did.
We did an AI versus Hollywood where we did Echoverse, which you can go back to that episode. I mean, I think we did 3 episodes on that
Yeah, I think
story.
it was, yeah.
The story for the book is exactly the same, maybe a little drawn out because it's
Yeah, it's a book.
it's well over 500 pages, so it's a good story.
Right.
I'll put it there.
And like I said, I mean, all it came from was an idea. Like all these things that we're doing is like that's what Matt is doing, and he's building himself up. So again,
Yeah.
take a read. Take a look at it.
So, getting into Evolve, our topic is burnout, and we're talking about burnout because you know what? Everybody everywhere gets burned out. Whether it's through work, whether it's I don't know. I mean, sometimes with video games I get burned out. I can tell you that right now.
Well, hold on. Before he goes on further with that, when he's talking about is more like he's like, oh, Call of Duty, Power World, for example, the game we've been playing for a while now. Now, I mean, he's right though, right? With burnout, whether it's work, whether it's video games, or whether it's basically general life, you start to, you do so much of one thing, you get basically to the point where you're like, I don't want to do this anymore. And now I'm not going to say this, and I know we're trying to be serious here. That this doesn't necessarily work for, or I guess it depends on the person. Maybe I was going to say addiction. You can't really say burnout as an, in that sense for the addiction part of it. But, being able to say like, when you're doing something for so long and stating that, for example, like you're at work and you're constantly trying to help people or you're trying to do all these things. And then it gets to the point of like, where am I going with this? Or
Well, so I
how
mean,
is this gonna
I
happen?
can give my little personal story when I was working for the
Yeah.
clinic because for me, when I was a substance abuse counselor for the clinic that I worked for, the ideal caseload was somewhere between 50 and 55,
Right.
which is still a lot of people when you consider how many actual people that you have to completely manage, like their cases, their everything. And it got to a point where the environment is just so toxic to begin with.
Mhm.
Counselors started leaving and more counselors started leaving. So our caseloads grew from about 55 to 65 to 75. Soon they were 85, 95. When I finally had enough, my caseload was 107. And the company, which is a for-profit clinic, they make money doing the services that they offer, are still telling me like, no, your production level has to stay the same. You have to meet with 65% of your caseload. If you don't, you're going to get a verbal warning. If you keep not meeting the limit, which is 65%, you could potentially get written up and you could lose your job. And it's one of those things like, if you didn't know what burnout was, try meeting with 65% of 107 people that don't want to see you to begin with.
Well, and I'm going to say this too. I mean, maybe I know there's a lot of fields, right? But I mean, coming from both like the mental health, addiction side of the house, the issue is in the field of the substance abuse field and mental health, right? In general, right? Burnout is a very real thing as like a counselor, as a case manager, as a whatever else in between, because you're sitting there just like what Matt was saying, you're trying to help these individuals depending on what they want. And if they really want to be there, some might have to be court mandated. Some of them, maybe they come on their own free will. And so they're like, oh, whatever, I guess I'll just do whatever the hell I want. And so like the other expectation is, and I know, I don't know if this is like something as well, but like I know currently in my job, like a lot of times it's based off of KPI. So for us, it's more we have to meet a certain amount of billable hours per week, for clients and things like that, right? So a lot of times, like KPI expectations, and especially in the veteran side of the house, like it's hard to meet that. And the reason
Yeah.
why is because there's not enough here where I'm at, there's only so much we can do, and trying to meet with people, or if they cancel or whatever. And I'm not saying that right now I'm like at a burnout phase, but I could see, like, if this continued for probably a few years, I probably could see myself burning out because the expectations are not real, in the sense of like they're trying to make you do something that realistically isn't going to happen.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, when you know the hours that I worked, the hours of dosing was, I mean, I started at 5.
Right.
And dosing is when people start getting there. I mean, you could see people, but from that 5 to 6 point of time, but there's not many that came up before dosing because the doors were all locked. But you have from 6 a.m. to 11, because that's when the doors closed. 5 hours. I did my math right, right? That's five hours that you have to see patients. I'm there for 8 hours, and I think I estimated that within that time frame, like, I had the availability for 14 appointments, because every single one of my patients is required to do 30 minutes a month. And every day I could set a maximum of 14 appointments. And that's not including if I have a meeting,
Right.
taking a lunch, or maybe like a small 10-minute break in between. Like, all of those would minimize how many actual appointments that I could have throughout that day. And on top of that, not all 107 are going to come up to the office and see me. They usually will go dose and then completely forget about their appointment with me. And I have to, like, now think of ways to do more work to get them in my office. So it's this thing, like, burnout doesn't just suddenly, like, oh, it's like, oh, I'm burned out now. Hey,
Like,
like,
I'm here.
it didn't suddenly appear, and it's not that, like, oh, I'm losing it a little bit. Maybe I'm just too soft, and, like, I'm not scheduling hard enough, or I'm not doing enough. No, it's one of those things when the system increases the demand. And
Right.
and that's what happened. The demand just got higher and higher and higher, but I only have so much time, because after 11, 11:30, 12 o'clock, I leave for the day at 1:30. And technically, telehealth or telecounseling is not a legal thing to get their half an hour in. But you're also considering that I have to call somebody who just left here and is probably already high. Just the truth.
Well,
So it's
yeah.
like, now I have to come in the next day, and on top of the people that I already have scheduled, try to fit the people that I missed the previous day, and it just adds and it adds and it adds. And that's where, I mean, that was the point that I was like, you know what, fuck this. Like, seriously, like, I cannot manage this and then have to worry about these people who are not even in this state going, yeah, you need to write him up because he only reached 43%.
Well, and that's my thing too, is that, where you're talking about like a for profit versus like a nonprofit and this and that. I mean, the reality is that yes, everyone needs to get paid, right? And so, you have bosses, they have supervisors, they, so on and so forth, right? And everyone it's like a trickling down effect. And so, like, it comes back to you, and then it's like, okay, well, how do we fix this? How do we do this? How do we do that? And so I look at it as like, if you're, let's say you're the CEO, right? And you're like, oh, well, why isn't we, why aren't we making enough, and why aren't we doing enough? Like, I wouldn't be sitting there trying to, like, fire people. What I would try to do is like, what can we do to make this better? what can we do to make this more efficient enough to do all this? But the thing is about, again,
Yeah.
what we're talking about with burnout is that over time, right? And this right here is actually probably even like perfect right here is like even downtime has been monetized, optimized, or turned into like content. So, like you basically don't have time to think. You're just basically there to be like, okay, well, I guess I'll just do what I need to do and look like a robot as I'm trying to do it.
I mean,
And the optimization, like, right, is as individuals, as we're trying to basically trying to make this better, we need the time to think, okay, well, I know I have a job, I know I have to do this, I know I have to do that, but how am I, how is it realistic? How can I make my, we'll call it the goals that these people have, and how is this all going to work? And so, again, eventually, right, like we've been talking about, you just get to a point where you're like, I don't want to deal with this shit anymore. Like your mental health goes out the goddamn window, and you're like, you know what, I'm done. Like I don't want to deal with you. I don't want to deal with
right.
this. And then basically, you do maybe something stupid and say, you know what, fuck you, I'm done. Get me out of here.
Yeah,
Like,
and it doesn't
call it a
just,
day.
I mean, it doesn't just fall into, the mental health or what we call human services. Like it can,
No.
this can happen anywhere. Like you can be working at like, I don't know, Staples, and
Right.
you're waiting for the next person to come in who's supposed to relieve you. Maybe you're running a cash register and they come an hour late, but somehow never get in trouble for it. Like these are the things that we're talking about. Like it's just
Well, yeah.
bullshit, and you end up having to keep pushing in, keep pressing in, keep pushing and pushing, and soon, like you're now working, past where you're supposed to do. You're because people leave and because people aren't showing up, or maybe you do have like these coworkers that just don't do shit, and they're like now you're doing your job and you're doing their job.
Well, and here's the other thing I also think about, right? So, like you were just saying too, like burnout is that it's everywhere. It's not just like we were only saying about mental health because that that's part of our experience, part of our
Right.
things here, kind of talking about all this. But think of it also like when I'm not saying like PTSD, but I'm thinking like trauma. Trauma's everywhere. Just the same thing with burnout. It doesn't just happen only in like the high level demanding jobs or this and that. Like it's there. So and I'm only bringing up trauma like it was burnout is because a lot of times I feel like either whether it's a traumatic event or just over time, like the little tiny little things that just like you said, those add up. Like because I think of trauma as like so many different things, but like especially like you said, if you see somebody that's getting away with the dumbest bullshit, and you're sitting there
Right.
working your ass off, and you're not getting either the same recognition or you're basically told you got to work 10 times harder, and this fuckhead is not doing a damn thing to make his life or your guys' life easier. Like this is the point we're also trying to make is that you just get to a point where it's like it's like that water bottle, you're filling it up every so often, and then after that you're like right at the tipping point, and then that tipping point is when you you burst. Ooh, oh my god, I'm sorry. So like with burnout is like you get to that point and then either you fucking quit and you say, you know what, I'm done, I don't want to deal with this anymore, or you gotta calm down. And like these are also things that we'll probably talk about too, is like better ways to try to learn how to manage the burnout and not hopefully do all that down the road. But
Yeah, some of the little research here that we have, some little facts here. So the WHO,
the what?
so the World Health Organization classifies burnout as an occupational phenomenon, not a personal disorder. So it's they don't classify it as like this is not a you problem. It's not something like it, that would be like mental health and that kind of an issue where
Right.
it's an occupational phenomenon. It happens. Gallup reports that over 75% of workers experience burnout symptoms, and productivity has steadily increased over decades, while staffing ratios, job security, and recovery time have decreased. That seems to be a problem for me.
Well, and it is a problem. And the way I look at that too is, I mean, we gotta. We're not bringing up politics here, but if we're talking about the economy, right? In order to fix the economy, you also need to again, I know the supply and demand. There's, give and take on, giving people the opportunity. Oh, wait, to do, let's say, jobs and to do all this. But the thing is like, a lot of places aren't really hiring because now they have to pay so much money. Because again, this is where I say they're kind of being selfish slash greedy because they're trying to find cheaper ways to manage that stuff. But if I was a boss, right, Matt? He's like, no, you're not. Don't even talk. Uh, I would say this. I'd be like, all right, so if I want to have a successful business, I want to put the time and energy into people that hopefully, again, want to do the job. But also, if I invest in them, then I'm not having to worry about the productivity. I'm not having to worry about, people wanting to leave. Like if people, again, you also have to think as it like a human being, right? Because people have things that go on in their lives. We've talked about this before, where when you're talking about burnout, like let's say, you know, let's say your wife's pregnant and you just lost your, I don't know. Well, I'm throwing a random example here, but let's say you lost your dad. All these things just start to pile up, and then your boss is, let's say he's an asshole and he's just trying to put all this other work to you, right? So you have your wife that's pregnant, and you got to deal with that, and you just lost your dad, and then now your boss is telling you got to do it. Like, you don't think that this person, I'm just making it up, you don't think that that person's not going to lose their shit at some point.
Oh no, they definitely
They're
are.
going to
And
lose their
it's
shit at some point, and they're probably not going to want to work there because if you're not going to treat them as such, or at least be like, okay, listen, I understand that your wife's pregnant. I understand that you just lost your dad. I know I'm asking a lot of you, like, if we have to work on this, like, let's find a solution. I'd rather work with somebody that can say, hey, listen, like, life happens. Let's try to manage this a little bit easier
yeah.
versus you're going to fucking do it now, whether you like it or not. And I don't give a shit
Well,
what's
it's
going on.
when that it's when the system is defective, and you're saying like, well, I understand that you have your issues, but so doesn't Sally, and so doesn't Dave over there.
Oh, my bad.
Everybody's got their issues. We're short staffed. We need you to work, and it's like, well, this is some fucking bullshit because I'm dealing with shit, and I'm telling you
Right.
already that this is way too much. And yeah, but that it happens everywhere, and it's not just with work. I mean, it could be any
Aspect of your
aspect. I
life.
mean, if we move it over to geek culture, I mean, you could apply the same thing to cosplaying, right? Like,
I was about to say DC and Marvel, but
well,
whoa, don't be doing that now.
but it's the system gets defective because of all of the things that they're trying to push, and they don't invest in the people because it's all about what is the systems, the processes. I can say, I mean, right now I work for a hospital doing medical records, and it was initially a nonprofit hospital, Catholic hospital.
Right.
It's still a Catholic hospital, but now it's owned by a for-profit company.
Mm-hmm.
And I swear to God, efficiency isn't something they use or talk about or even know about. Like, you can put all the systems and the processes and all of these things together. And I say it almost every single day, like, not any of this is efficient in any way, shape, or manner. And this is the problem. Like, the system is defective, and we move forward to this like culture today where it's like, if you're tired, you're just not hungry enough, right? Like, you don't have the drive. If you need rest, you don't have the discipline, right? If you slow down, there's someone else waiting for your job that will take your spot and probably work cheaper, but will do the job better.
And here's the thing about that too. I'm not saying that, yes, I would rather have people that are driven, right? That want to be, successful and want to be, hopefully at a bit like a better level, right? Because like, especially, and I'll say this about like military stuff. So, my goal, even though like I was at a certain level, like I wanted people underneath me so I could train them so that eventually they could take my job. And that's the mentality that we should have in saying like, hey, listen, I'm here right now because I had to do the same thing you're doing, but I want to train you so that eventually you could take my job and I could go on to do something else and do all that. That's the idea that we should have instead of saying, okay, yeah, we have this one guy over here who's been waiting for, let's say, 5 years. And yeah, he can do it for about, let's say I don't know, we'll call it $10 an hour, and you're trying to ask for $20. Yeah, of course they're going to be like, oh, well, let's just go with this guy that has $10 an hour or whatever.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like we just were talking about with this whole burnout thing, life happens. Like, you don't just, it doesn't just stop. Like, and I think where people, think about this stuff is like, they're just like, well, we can just replace you. Well, here's the issue, right? So I can tell you, especially at my job, they definitely take care of their employees in the sense of like, if you need time off, take the time off because they're asking you to take the time off because they know how stressful, how things are, how sometimes fast paced and all this other stuff that happens. There are very few places that actually say, we want you to take time off because you
Yeah.
can't sit here and continuously do this all the time.
Well, no, because the narrative now protects the institution and more or less like blame the people that are working there. Like you have to almost push harder, and if you need rest, God forbid, like you feel guilty about it because you're like,
No, you
oh,
do.
I'm taking this day off, but like now I feel guilty because you know your boss is like, well, I suppose you can have the day, but we'll be really short. Well, you know what? That's not my fucking problem. Like, I'm telling you, I need a day off, and that's it. Like,
Well, yeah.
you shouldn't have to feel guilty about taking day off. And I'm not a supervisor, but I can kind of relate to what you were saying before. But at the same time, like if I have somebody who might not be as motivated to do the job, I would 100% want to be like, how can I get you motivated? Like, what is it
Yeah.
gonna take to light a fire under your ass so you start working?
No, so here's the thing. I do agree with that too. I'm not saying that you shouldn't give up on individuals that don't want to work. I'm just saying that yes, if I have somebody that is also willing to, do the job and do all that, that's great. Yes, I do agree. But and you just as well as I know, it also depends on that type of person because like if you ask the questions and say, what can I do? And they give some fucking, because you can tell by people's body language, their tone, like by certain ideas or basically things that
Well,
they're
yeah, I
saying,
mean,
if they're going to actually want to do it.
it just depends on whether the person, and this is like if you are or were or want to be a supervisor, like this is something you should really look at because yes, can the person do more? Is the person capable of doing more? Like you have to evaluate these things because I do think that people are worth investing in. Everybody has a motivation, and it's just one of those things like, yes, I could look at this person and go, well, that person's never going to be able to do this job the way that I want them to do the job. And I could easily just let them go and repost the position and get someone who would be more motivated because they're brand new. Instead of me like going up to that person and saying like, hey, let's have a meeting. Let's come up with a plan, like a path for success for you that you're going to be motivated, you're going to be driven, because I'm just not seeing it right now
Well, and that's the other thing too is that I think.
because they're fucking burned out.
Well, correct. No, I mean, I definitely have some like different ideas and thoughts about that too. But I will say that when I even first started this job, I mean, I even thought to myself like, is this something I want to do for a long time and this and that, and I thought to myself like, this is a great kind of stepping stone to kind of see where my head's at and try to figure all that. I mean, I can tell you right now, like, yes, this is still what I want to do. It kind of just more validates what I really been wanting to do. And at least it kind of helps me work on that stuff. But like you're saying too, like if you're not if you're not trying to invest in your people and you're trying to say fuck off, I can go find somebody else and just call it a day, that's where the issue is. It doesn't matter about
If
that
it's all about
individual.
productivity and your processes and not the people that you have, that's
Well,
the
there's
problem.
well then your problem is you.
Yeah,
Because you need to
that's
fix
the
that.
problem. It's one of those things, and working at the clinic, this is where I first got this in my head, and I use it every day now. I mean, I work hard. If you don't know anything that I do with the podcast, like I work.
Oh,
I'm
he
willing to
works.
do the work. But the thing is, I had to realize when I was at the clinic that I'm only human. I can do what I can do, And this is exactly what I would tell my supervisor if she ever had a conversation with me about like not meeting the 65% was I can do all I can do. What I can do is a lot, but I can only do that when there's a limit placed on what I'm able to actually accomplish. And you have to go with this like you can push harder, you can work on the weekends, you can work at night, you can continue doing all this shit, but you're going to end up at a point where you're going to get a case of the fuckets. And once that comes in, it's very hard to break it because now you're just going to be like, well, they just keep giving me this shit. Fuck it. Like, I'm not doing it, whatever. And that's where you really get into this like survival mode, which is really unhealthy. Like when you're literally at work and you're in survival mode because it's just fight or flight, right? You just have to do it. You do it. You do it. You keep pushing. If you don't push and you don't do it, like they'll just let go of you and get somebody else. But if you get to that point, you're not going to be as productive or as happy as you need to be. Like you need to get to a point where you have to be satisfied. Like I've done all I can possibly do without breaking my butt, and I'm satisfied with that.
Well, and I love this little sentence right here. It's not resilience because it's true. Because when you're talking about the ability to bounce back, move forward from it, especially in the sense of burnout. How many times are you willing to move forward from it and keep bouncing back from it every single time that this happens? Because that's the reality is like because that's the hard part with life, right? Because as we all know, nothing is basically affordable. And so our minds are like, hey, well, we need to have a job. We need to have money. We need to be able to do certain things so we can survive. I'm not saying that, yes, there are going to be times in your life that you might think, well, shit, I would love to have this dream job. And then I can't do it because realistically, right now, with money wise, I need to be able to do this. And I get that. Full heartedly, I get that. And just like probably everybody else that actually has a job and actually is working, because at some point you have to realize like, and unfortunately it sucks is like, with life in general is that especially where, we haven't had like a pay increase, like in the median averages of salaries and this and that for basically years, we're talking.
Yeah.
Back in the 70s, sure, you know what? Everything was basically as neutral as you're going to get and you could afford things. Now you can't even do that. So we're not saying that, especially with burnout. Yeah. So if you're in a job that, yes, you may not like, I understand that part of it too could be, you're trying to also survive in the sense of, just trying to, live your life the best way you can.
Yeah. Make
But
ends meet.
right. And so that's the hard part is because I agree. If everyone could do a job that they love, absolutely, it would be great because then there honestly burnout wouldn't exist. But the issue is too is that that's not always true because even if like let's say you wanted to do that dream job, maybe you realize
No,
that
it's just people are grinding and grinding. I mean, I've known people that had. There was one person I've ever known that he had 4 jobs,
oh god
4 fucking jobs. Obviously, because the first 3 were not paying his bills.
right
So you get a. I mean, you want to talk burnout? Try working 4 fucking jobs.
No way.
And trying to have a life and trying to, he had kids, he had a wife.
you
Like
would barely see them.
you barely. I mean, that's the reason I don't want to take a second job. Could I use a second job? Yeah, sure. I mean,
I mean technically I have 2 jobs too, but I mean that's a different story. But yes,
but it's the thing. Like, if we're looking at this, like chronic stress locks your nervous system into this like fight or flight, right? It
Mhm.
When you're in this like state, it kills creativity. It's impairing your judgment. It increases your irritability and your emotional numbness,
Mhm.
and it makes rest feel like it's unsafe instead of restorative. So that would be, if you go to sleep and then you wake up and you're just as tired,
Yeah.
you're not enduring, you're in survival mode. Like this chronic stress, like it affects you in ways that you don't believe it does, but mentally, physically, like it's bad.
Well, and that's the thing where, I'll say it. You don't evolve in survival mode, you just endure, right? So right now, unfortunately, in our society, we're enduring.
That's that mentality. Like, oh, I'll just deal with it. I'm fine.
No, well, think about it, right? Because unfortunately,
That's
right
the
now,
word.
society as a whole, right now, and especially where we'll just call it the United States. I'm not saying everywhere else because I figured everywhere else at least probably has some sort of idea of how to deal with all this stuff. But specifically in the United States, all of us are enduring because we're realistically like right now, Matt. I would love to own a house. I would love to not have to be in this small ass room as we're recording this right now. But unfortunately, because I know that I can't do and I can't realistically afford a house because it's so goddamn expensive, I have to endure and I have to deal with it because that's just unfortunately what it is as of this
Right.
moment. If I could make something happen where sure, I would love to get a house. Shit, you know what I'd love to do, Matt? Just a little side topic. I'd love to build a fucking compound, and I'd put your ass in there too.
I thought
We'd
that's
build
what
that.
you were gonna say.
I was, and I'd be like, let's just build a fucking compound, man, and we just boom, 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 right there. It's all community based, whatever. And I'm just saying it because honestly, because then I'd be like, cool, we're all next to each other. We're all, whatever we got to do, we'll figure it out. No, but like, and that's just, I know it was just kind of a little side rant, but no, I'm just saying that we're unfortunately in this survival enduring mode because there's no realistic way to get out. And so, going back to burnout as a whole here, you know, as when you start to look around in your neighborhoods and things like that, you see the people that, that are, yeah, sure, maybe they're doing really well, and then you see the ones that are, they're scraping by, right? And maybe the ones that are even doing well, you probably don't even know that they're probably at a point of burnout because they're trying their best, they're trying to do this,
I
but
mean,
then
the statistic is 75%. So that's most people you see.
right. So that means they're hiding it pretty damn well.
Yeah. And we're talking obviously about burnout and this chronic stress and the hustle culture, but it's like you hear people, right? And they're always tired. People are always tired.
Mm-hmm.
They're always tired. And it's almost like when you're trying to rest or you're trying to sleep, it's really not a comfortable thing because especially in our society now, productivity becomes identity, right? Like
Right.
when you have to stop, it doesn't feel natural. It doesn't feel like you're doing anything. And most people, I would say most people, because there are some people that could literally just sit at home and play video games all day.
I feel like never mind.
and,
Go ahead.
and it's not like they do actual work,
Right.
but when you're not physically doing something, I mean, I've thought about this, like just watching TV today, it was like, I'm not doing anything. Like, should I be doing something? Like, te- technically, like Saturdays, like I like to just chill. I mean, I know we're not chilling right here, but like,
Well, this is chilling.
I-
This is a way of chilling.
I
Go
like
ahead.
resting because I work Monday through Friday. Like I grind and I do what I need to do, and then when Saturday comes, it's like, oh, I can sleep in until 9 or 10, and I can kind of go do my normal thing. Like, but
'Cause
it's
there's
like
no expectation.
at the real like small section of my brain, it is like, oh, should I be working? Should I be doing like the dishes, or should I be doing laundry? Like, I gotta grind. I gotta keep grinding. You gotta keep moving. You gotta keep doing. But rest almost like feels like you're disappearing from the world.
Not even that. It also, as of lately, or I would say, kind of like what you're describing, it's almost a chore.
Well, I mean, they are called chores for
No, I know, but no, but think about it, right? Because then when you're in that mode of like, oh, should I be doing something? Blah, 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 and your brain just kind of goes all around. Then you're like, you really can't because then you're like, oh well, I guess I have to do it anyways as I should. But like you're not just like in a state of mind that you're just like, and you're just sitting there and not
Right.
doing anything. You're constantly thinking about
Yeah,
stuff and
and
like you make it a chore.
I'm not necessarily saying like, oh, you just spend like the whole entire Saturday doing absolutely nothing. No,
I mean,
don't.
there are
I mean,
times that I have, but
but it's one of those things where like people in general, like when you tie your worth to your output,
Right.
like you're not your productivity.
Well, and right. And again, it feels like, again, it doesn't feel natural, when
And
you're
it's even harder when you have a significant other that will come out of like the bedroom, or like maybe they went somewhere and they came back and they're like, "You're still sitting in this fucking chair? Like you were only gone for like an hour.
what did you want me to do?
What did you want me?" But it's
Wait, Matt,
all
don't
these things add up, and it's
let's not go back to the roast thing, okay? 'Cause let's not do
no,
that
no, no,
again.
no. I'm not roasting anybody. I'm just saying in general, like you have significant others that might be like, "Oh, well, this needs to get done, and that needs to get done, and this needs to get done," and like you wake up on a Saturday and you have this honey-do list that's like 50 things deep, and you're like, yeah, I'm not getting any of that fucking shit done. Like,
Well,
you know what I
no,
mean?
but
Like,
I do agree with
I
you.
like my I like my Saturdays as like a resting day, like because like Sundays come and I'm getting up at 6 fucking 30 in the morning to go to church to play. I'm there until noontime, and then Sundays is like we do our laundry, we do all of our shopping. Like
Right. So
it's a day that we're doing stuff, and there needs to be productivity there, because if I'm not productive, then guess what? I don't have clothes to wear and I can't go naked because that's frowned upon in society.
fair enough.
But
Yeah.
Saturday is like that day. Like I wanna unwind. I wanna relax. Like, yeah, I might not have any output or production coming out of me, but if you don't let yourself rest, and this is finding that balance, it's not just like rest is 70% and work is 30, or the
Right.
opposite. It's finding the balance between the two where you can be still enough to hear your own heartbeat.
Well, no, and
You
you
know,
know
you
what?
know.
I do agree with you because I will say that, unfortunately I'm in that same boat where, you feel like you have to do stuff. Like literally it feels like almost, and I'll say it, right? And it's not a bad thing in some ways, but like I'm just going to show like as an example. So of course I go to work in the morning, I go to work at 8:30 depending on the the time frame here. I'll still be available doing all that, and then of course during the day, do my things, meet with clients, do what I need to do at work, and then I'll come home. It might be 5, might be a little after 5, whatever. And then it's almost again, it's not really an expectation, but it's more like, okay, well, what can I do to help? Especially with Wyatt and with Allie, and try to figure out all that stuff. So like it's almost like my brain doesn't stop until like a certain point because like it really, and both my wife and I know she can probably attest to this, is like at 7 o'clock, once Wyatt pretty much winds down and goes to bed, that's where I'm like, all right, I'm trying to like mentally say, you don't have to do shit now. So if we can, we'll sometimes do like laundry during the week, or if like let's say we have to go grocery shopping too, and actually we've decided that we're going to start probably going back on probably Sundays again to start doing that because I don't really want to go during the weekend. It's a pain in the ass every single time that we do it. But I just know for us is that, you're right. There's always this constant motion. There's always stuff going on. And there are times where I'm like, is there a weekend that we're not doing something? Because
Yeah,
literally
yeah.
I'm thinking to myself, like, we need time to not do stuff because I feel like that's the other thing too, is like you keep busy for so long and you're not having that time to say, when the fuck are we going to have a break from everybody else? And when are we going to do what we need to do? Because, like, for me, like, as you can tell in this room, I would love to come in here one of these days and not like literally at 7, like, so if let's say I'm done with work and I'm doing all that stuff after 7 o'clock, after 7 o'clock, man, I'm not gonna lie. Do you think I really want to come in here and say, you know what, fuck it, I want to do it right now? My brain's like, no, you're not gonna do it right now. You need to take a fucking load off. I'd love to get this done so I don't have to think about it anymore. But
Right.
if it was like, let's say tomorrow, depending on what it's going on, yeah, I probably want to say, okay, you know what? Let's get this shit done because I want to make sure it's done. But I agree with you. It's trying to be like, what is going to be, that chill state of mind, and when when do I have that time to be, productive? Let's say at home, because that's the other thing, right? Because we spend most of our lives doing work, right? Or
Right.
most of doing that. Not saying that home isn't really work. Oh wait, homework. Oh, see, a little
A
philosophy
little
there for you.
yeah.
I'm just saying, look, because either way you look at it, right, you still have to be productive in all aspects of your life.
Right. But I mean, the thing is, and I'll talk about brain science.
Ooh.
because your brain actually requires a time to be idle. Not like you're just sitting there drooling on yourself going,
Oh.
um, but it needs that idle time because when you have that rest, like those breaks where you're not doing anything, you're not focused on anything, that's the time that your brain uses to say regulate emotions.
Mm.
Um, you're integrating experience and you're creating a deeper meaning. It needs that time to rest, which is why, they do say to get like somewhere between 8 to 12 hours of sleep because your brain requires this. It's like the default mode gets turned on.
And realistically, I'm going to ask you: you really think anyone's going to get 12 hours of sleep?
I can
I'm
probably tell you Danielle probably gets about 12 hours.
I feel like most women might get a lot more sleep than men do. But
Um,
anyways,
but but the thing is, it's not just like sleep, right? It's that time of doing just nothing,
it's quiet time.
just a quiet time. Like maybe you're watching TV, maybe you're reading a book, maybe you're doing something that's not actually doing something.
You mean like video
But
games?
you only get to this like default mode when you stop doing. Because if you get home and you're like, oh, I gotta bring the kid to soccer and I gotta do laundry and I gotta cook dinner and I gotta go to the store and when do you actually stop moving? Well, I don't, and I only sleep for like 4 hours a day, get out of here. Like you need to have the break.
Or you're going to lose your mind. Literally. No. Yeah. And here's the other thing too, right? So the constant stimulation, can block this process entirely, which it's true because when you even think about little kids, right? Their mind, shit, I always look at Wyatt for an example. I swear, I feel like, and I know that, when you're talking about a 2 year old, or I would say from 1 to like a certain age, it's like they're trying to process all this stuff. They're going, especially right now for Wyatt, he's just speaking about a mile a minute, and you're like, he's like, and he's just trying to figure out what the hell's going on, and I'm just like, buddy, I don't know what the hell you just said, but okay, that's fine. But whatever you said, cool story, bro, kind of a thing. And then, like, he also does this, like, and I joke about this, but it's almost like this. And I actually joked about it with my mother-in-law, is the whole like the emotional piece, right? So like it's like this. I called it bipolar because like all of a sudden, hey, how you doing? Happy go lucky, and then all of a sudden, ooh, they're crying and they're and I get all that, but like think about it like that for a second, like as you being like a little kid, having that constant, like, oh my god, what's going on, and you're trying to process everything, and your mind's going about a mile a minute, and you're just like, how the hell do I, either stop thinking about all this stuff, or how do I take that moment to regroup my thought process? So, when you're looking at a little kid, and they're granted, a lot of this is like for the first time, we'll say, you know, at some point they have to dial down a little bit. So we have to kind of do that same thing and say, okay, listen, when do we say enough is enough? And we say, shh, here's the wall,
Yeah.
here's this and that, and Matt's like, that's when I play video games. No.
Well, no, I mean, for me, when I worked at the clinic, and I kind of wanted, I like to do the same thing. Like when I leave work now, is like I will, especially at the clinic. This was important to me because I was like, listen, I get home at 1:30. I need at least like an hour just to myself,
Mhm.
where you're not bugging me, you're not talking to me, you're not calling my name to be like, hey, what's for? I don't want any of that bullshit. Like I need this time to like decompress myself. So whether I'm playing video games or I'm on the computer doing something or I'm just sitting here literally just staring at the boob tube for nothing. Like I don't want you talking to me at all, asking me to do shit or telling me about your like I don't want I need to decompress myself. And for me being very introverted, I can't do that when like someone's constantly like, well, how was your day? Well, I talked to so and so. It's like, just shut up for a minute. Like I need this time just to myself. And it was great getting out at 1:30 because I had that time.
Right, because then you didn't have to constantly worry about that. But like, I guarantee you, when Rachel and Tate were growing up with you, you didn't have that opportunity all
No,
the time
no,
to do all
and
that.
but that that's what was important to me, and it still is important to a point. Like, yeah, I mean, I get home at like 5, So there's a little bit of time in between, but it's like I just don't want to be bothered, just even if it's for 20 minutes or 30 minutes. Like, just God, just leave me alone for that little time. After that, I'm all yours. If you want me to do laundry, whatever. If you want to talk to me about your crappy ass day, then fine. Let's do it. But give me this time. And this is what we're talking about. Like, it's this time of like rest, and it's not laziness. So I want to get it clear, like, just because it looks like you were sitting there watching TV doing nothing, it's not you being lazy unless you've been sitting there for 8 hours. If you've been sitting there for 8 hours and you've been just binging the same episode and you haven't moved,
Yeah, then
that could
there's
be
an issue.
borderline laziness, but it's you have to consider it as maintenance, because your rest, if you're not resting, it's not going to make you any stronger. You're just going to be further burned out. It's just going to break you down even further.
So here's another thing I wanted to mention real quick is so, and I'm going to say a little bit about myself, and I'll because Matt's kind of talked about it before too. So here's the thing, right? And I'm not going to deny it. You can whatever. I, both Matt and I have, certain. I really wouldn't call it an illness, right? It's more of a disorder or whatever you want to call it, a label, which we even know I don't like using labels, but that's just me. So again, I was diagnosed with PTSD. I know Matt has some. I know he can talk about it here in a second. Like we both have things in our brains because unfortunately I had to go through something and that's how it happened with me. I know Matt was basically just born with it. So in the sense like it, so when we're talking about like maintenance, like when he was just talking about that, so like we're not saying that we're lazy, right? We're saying that I know for me, like I need to like you like basically what you said. I agree with you. Like I need that time because if I was bombarded with things, if I had so much stimulation to the point where it was like in my face, I didn't have a second to think about things and all this other stuff. I've noticed that I've become more, I wouldn't say angry, but just it was just like if you don't fucking leave me alone, I'm gonna lose my shit, right? And so I would need that minute to like I need a second so that when I do talk to you, I'm not losing my shit on you. And
Right.
I'm not doing these things because I know now that, yeah, I do need to do that. And I try to be better, especially where, my son is 2.5 and he picks up on those things. And I know that. And I'm trying to be better. It's not easy, but I'm trying to be better so that he knows, like, hey, maybe I don't need to be like right in my dad's face every 2 seconds. Like, it's not that I don't want to see you, right? It's not like I
Yeah.
don't want to spend that time with you, but it's like I need a minute so I can think, so that way I'm not taking it out on you for no reason, right? And so same thing with like you and Danielle, like you don't want to not listen. It's just more I need a fucking minute because if I don't take that time for a second, I'm probably going to lose my shit on you and you're going to hate me or not hate me, but like you're not going
Right.
to like what I'm about to tell you in a second.
There's
Be-
going to be stupid things that'll be said,
And then
and
it's just a big fast fight.
instead of you just, you know, giving me, you know, 20, 30 minutes just to myself to, not focus on anything, to decompress, whether I'm listening, like I said, whether I'm listening to music or I'm, playing a video game or whatever. Like, it's just one of those things. Like, you need that time for your brain to rest and not think of like what your fucked up day look like or what you have to do tomorrow, or, oh, I need to get all this done. And
Right.
you just you're taking that time and you're like, you know what, I just need to chill.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing where, I know for you and I, in our lives because it's a little bit different now, right? So like you're given at least that opportunity to do all that. I know for me, I might, my time for me is either I'm going to the bathroom or I'm changing to get out of like, what I was wearing and just kind of like relaxing for a bit, then I would say, okay, hey, now that I'm good, what do you want me to do real quick do you want me to help you with dinner? Do you want me to, make sure Wyatt's all set, whatever the case is. And then, like I said, the way I think of it is too, is that basically once Wyatt goes to bed, if Allie stays up and we watch a TV show or if we're doing something, or, if she stays up with me for a little bit and says, oh, I don't care if you want to play your game or whatever, then like, that's fine. Like, and then I do want to spend time with her, but I also, I also want to make sure that I'm not doing something that I want to do. You know what I
Right.
mean? And the same thing with you is that, you know, you're trying to spend that time with her, but you're also trying to say, okay, well, at some point I would, I'd like to play
Yeah,
and do
and
other
for
things.
for me, it is like later in the day when she's usually in bed by like 10 o'clock, so it's like just that, you know, 10 to midnight or so, that I just have to myself, and it's nice. Like I enjoy it. That's why I stay up later than I normally should, but
I know.
um, I enjoy the time when it's like I don't have to be like communicative or.
Unless he's like,
I
yeah,
mean, if you and I are playing or we're playing with Jordan or whatever, like fine, communicate. But I mean, there's been times when we've been playing Pal World and I don't say a
well,
damn
no, but
thing
well, the
for
problem is, look,
for a
we're not
long
going to go
time.
down. Well, we're not going to go down that rabbit hole. But yes, I know certain games. Yes, you can communicate, and then in that particular game, there's only so much communication because there's not a whole lot of going on. Like it'd be
Right.
different if we're playing, Space Marine or maybe Arc Raiders or Borderlands or whatever, right? You'd have to communicate in that sense. But I do know what you're saying, and that's the thing where we're saying too here is that you know you need that time to pause, you need that time to rest, you need a moment of silence. It's like you almost have to take a day, like you think about it like that, a moment of silence, right? Something that you don't have to think about.
Right.
You're not physically doing. You're not thinking about it. You're not maybe feeling it either. You're just
And
taking in
this
the
is like
moment.
one of those things where like, if you need to take a day off from work, this is what you do. Like you don't just take a day off from work and say like I just need a day off. And then you go home and then you end up working hard on your entire day off so that by the time you go back to work the next day, you're like, oh, I'm already exhausted. Like I'm not rested at all.
Well, so the one thing is too is that it sucks where you do. Let's say sometimes you might have to take a day off because you don't have time during the week to do certain things, and so like you have to do like let's say a doctor's appointment or
Well, and
you
that's
have to
one
do
thing,
certain
but
things. But I'm just saying because sometimes it'll happen where like you said,
you have to take those, and I'll call them, we usually call them mental health days.
well, yeah, like very rarely have I actually took. Actually, I've only taken it since I've been at this job once. And it was just, I needed a day to not think about certain things. And it was just bad when I walked in there and I was like, all right, I honestly, am sorry to say this, but I got to take the day for myself. But I do agree with you. And it's like, sometimes it happens like that. And then again, like, you schedule, let's say days off too, because, I'm going to say it, if you play the system the right way where you could take a day off here, but then you're also, let's say it's a holiday on a Monday. Well, now you have a 4-day weekend, right? And so then you're like, okay, well, now I have a little bit of
Yeah.
time to go do other things and kind of do what you want to do. So even if and think about it like this too, is that even though maybe you're doing something, if it's stuff that you want to physically do and you're not,
Yeah. I
you know
mean,
what I
there are
mean?
people that love cleaning. I'm not one of them.
Like, look,
But there are people that love cleaning. Like
I,
they love doing the dishes. They love mopping and sweeping the floors. And
you know,
listen, if that's your thing, go at it. I mean,
I mean,
come over to my house and
you could do the same thing. No, I mean,
just
I
kidding.
agree with you
Yeah.
too. Is that I will admit when I was a kid, like growing up, like the one thing that I know when I don't do it here, and I haven't done it in a long time, is when my mom would tell me, "Hey, you need to go mow the lawn." The reason why I didn't mind it is because one, I was also outside, but it was nice because I could throw in my headphones, I could do what I need to, make sure that everything's lined up, everything's fine. I didn't mind doing that because again, it was quiet. I didn't have to think about anything. All I had to do was just do what I had to do. I didn't think of it as work because I was
Right.
thinking it's quiet time. I don't need to worry about anything. All I got to do is this and it's just, making sure everything's good to go. But like, if you find things like that where, you can kind of be by yourself and not have to, deal with whatever. It's almost like you're losing yourself in a different reality for a minute, and you're not focusing on what the present current day problem is.
It's one of those things. If you dread it before you even start it, it's not going to be restorative. Like you have to have something that, yeah. I mean, if it's mowing the lawn, if it's going to the gym, if it's cleaning, if your thing is doing laundry, then do
You can come right.
laundry.
You can
Like,
come right over to my house and start doing some
but
laundry. Yeah.
we should get into the blueprint challenge. This is
Yes.
our burnout triage.
Ooh.
So, the concept of this evolve blueprint challenge is that burnout doesn't require a total life overhaul. It just requires one intentional interruption.
Mm.
So you can think of this as triage, not transformation. So we would challenge you over the next 7 days to do just one of the following steps that we're going to talk about. Not all of them, not most of them, just one.
Yeah, and I'll say this, like, if you want to do all of them, good
Oh,
luck.
go for it. But you're just, I mean, you could go step by step and work through this and be like, you know what, I'm gonna dive right into this challenge and I'm gonna do it, but just pick one.
And the,
and
the
and
best part
and
is,
and do one, and then if you really want to do another one, do another one. But it's really just focus on one of them.
so you know what? I'll start off with step one. Okay. So step one, right? You could do identify the drain. See, I like that. That's a nice little ring to it there. So so here's the step, right? So you ask yourself honestly, there's two questions here. What costs me energy without giving anything back? And what obligation am I carrying out of guilt, habit, or fear, not necessity? So, as an example, or here's some examples, okay? So, like, responsibility that quietly became permanent, right? Or a constant availability through email, Slack. Slack, who the fuck uses Slack anymore? Anyways, no, or text messages.
There still are places
Well,
that use
I
Slack.
haven't used Slack in a long time, but or let's say a role you're performing that no longer fits or who you are. So in this case, right? So like, what costs me energy without giving anything back? Well, I mean, basically, it feels like almost everything because it depends on what it is that you're doing, right? So like, when let's say you're cooking dinner, unfortunately, yeah, I mean, you are getting something back because you're then eating a meal. But let's say you're cooking for everybody else in your family, right? You're technically giving that to them, but let's say you don't eat what they eat. So that basically you're not getting anything back from that. And you have to maybe cook
Yeah,
something else.
but I mean, it could be like, maybe you're going to a job and you know Dave over here isn't doing his job, so your boss is like, well, we need to still be productive, and they ask, so now you're expending more energy at work because, well, Dave is fucking off somewhere else. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
this is what we're talking about. Like, you have to identify, and I think this goes just, I mean, this is one of those very basic, like, I have a problem. Well, step one, identify the problem.
Exactly.
Right?
Like, what's the issue?
This is like a very common sense, a very basic step. Like, you have to identify the thing that's draining. Like, if you're like, oh, I'm burned out with work, or I'm burned out with this or that, you have to find out first what the thing is that's draining your energy. It's the very first, I mean, you're not acting on the problem with this first step. You're literally just saying, this is my problem. This is what's draining me.
Right. And so like, even if like you look at the second question, like, what obligation am I carrying out of guilt, habit, or fear? Let's say not necessity. So
Maybe Dave just needs to smack upside the head and you say, hey, can you fucking do your job, asshole? Like,
can you do that for me? No, I'd appreciate it. No, I know
no,
that.
don't smack your coworkers. That's bad.
I mean, that's bad.
That's
Okay?
bad. I'm good.
Okay. So, when I think of like, what obligation, right, that I'm carrying, let's say, I wouldn't say out of guilt or fear. I'd say maybe more out of like a habit necessarily is like, like I said, for me, I guess actually, you know what? I guess it could be a little bit of a fear, so like I told my wife a while back when I came home, especially when I would come home, I didn't want to be that husband that would just sit on his ass and not do a fucking thing because unfortunately in society is that we have so many divorce rates that are higher from previous, like if you look back in time. I'm not saying there wasn't divorces, but there wasn't as many, even though again generational effects here. But what I mean by that is like when you have guys that would just sit on their ass, not do a fucking thing, not being productive, and then they have this resentment, right, for not being able to be like a partnership and being able to do cohabitating together and raising let's say kids and so many other things, right? So like I told her, like, when I ask you the question of like what would you want me to do, it's not because of that I I'm just saying it just to say it. I'm saying it because I want to make sure that you have a little bit of a break too, so that I can help in any way that I can. And maybe that is like a fear, because I didn't want to be, unfortunately, like my parents. That's a different story, but like, I would say more like the generalization of a society, like looking at that, like, I just want to be a guy that's like, hey, I'm trying to help. What can I do? What's going to make it easier so that way I'm not thinking to myself like I don't have to worry about not having a wife when I come home, one day,
Right, right, right.
but like that's just how I would think
Yeah.
of it, something like that.
Yeah. So that first step is identify the drain. The second step that you could make is if you already know what's draining you, you could make one measurable exchange. And so you choose one correction, right? You can return constant availability, exchange it for a set response window. So instead of you have this constant availability, like, yeah, hey, whenever you need me, just give me a ring. You say, no, no, no. I'm only available until this time. After that, I'm off the table.
Matt's like, I'm going to do that every time when John wants to call me from now on.
And we're talking about exchanges here. So you can return this overcommitment and exchange it for one intentional no. Because it is okay to say no, especially if it's above and beyond what you're already doing.
Hmm.
You can say no.
Right?
You can return working through exhaustion and exchange it for stopping on time once. And I pretty much already said this once. Like, I've done all I can do. I'm calling it quits right here. I'll be back tomorrow, and I can, I can
Keep doing it again.
I can keep on where I left off.
Hmm.
Return optimization obsession and exchange it for doing something imperfect on purpose.
Mm-hmm. That's a tough one for you, Matt.
That is a tough one because I don't
That would
like
be
imperfection.
I think you might want to work on step 2 then, though.
You can return silence and exchange it for asking for help once or more than once, depending on if
Person.
yeah. And it's not about comfort; it's about sustainability. So we're talking about these things like constant availability, the overcommitment, working through exhaustion, optimization, obsession, and exchanging it for something else. This is the step where you can make those exchanges and see how they go. Maybe it doesn't work. Like maybe if you're constantly always available, you may have to adjust the windows. Like, hey, after 5 I'm not available. Well, you get out at 4:30, bud. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe you have to extend it a little bit further, and maybe you do pull it back. Like, hey, when 4:30 hits, don't fucking call me. This is my family time. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's going to be different for everybody. For one thing, my job, like, I do not want them calling me at after 4:30. Like, we've all left. If there's something that needs to be done tomorrow, guess what? I'll be back tomorrow.
I'll see you tomorrow.
You can tell me then. I don't need to be getting texts from my boss going, hey, tomorrow, can you make sure you focus? Get the hell out of here. You can tell me this tomorrow when I show up for work and you're already there. You know what I mean? Like, you can tell me this. I don't have to focus on it.
And again, I agree with you because I mean you're right because you need to set those boundaries. That's
The only difference is if you do have that job that puts you on call. If you're obviously on call, then you have no choice, but you have to answer the phone.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, it's you have to make those choices, and you have to find that moment of saying either no or, hey, I'm not going to be available after this time because I have to focus on my family and the things that I personally need to do. I can't be working for you 24/7. Sorry, John.
Sorry, John. Go suck a big one, And then, of course, our final step 3, right? So observe without judging. Now, I know that this can be a very hard one, okay, because it depends on the person. But, let's say for the week, right? So you don't optimize the outcome. You don't stack extra changes. There we go. Don't shame yourself, right? Just notice. So, for example, what changed in your body? What resistance showed up? What didn't fall apart when you stepped back? Burnout lies by telling you everything will collapse if you stop. So it's true, right?
That is like the most truth like thing that we've said so far. Because I feel like sometimes like I am that person that's like imperfection just doesn't exist in my brain.
Hence why I said step 2 is really
Right.
good for you.
But it's one of those things like, what does happen if I were to step back? Because in my brain, I'm thinking like, well, this ship is going to hit the iceberg and we're sinking.
Right.
Like if I'm not doing the shit that I'm doing, it's just going to collapse. And this is where like you really do have to challenge yourself for that week and be like, I need to take that step back and I need to just see, not that you're like, oh, I'm not working. I'm not working. Guys, I'm not working. I'm just
not
going to
working here.
supervise. No, you don't like work yourself like you have been. You take that step back. You just do what you're supposed to do. And you just kind of watch and you observe. I think that this is like,
Yeah, and I was going to say this too. Is like, you know what? I'm actually going to use you as an example. I know that, yes, and I've said this on many occasions, and I know I'm going to say this one more time here. You know, Matt, yes, he works a lot when it comes to this podcast. I know that there are things that I need to start doing to help him out. And I know that there are times where I try to do that. And then I know he's going to mention probably something about Power World here in a second. You know, I will say that, I know he's very perfectionist, right? Like he wants it done a certain way. He wants things to be whatever. And I said, that's fine if that's what you want to do. But I've told him on numerous occasions that I never want him to think that he's alone in this whole thing because wait, we're here together doing this. And I never said that I couldn't do it. There are certain things that I know that you have a better strong suit in versus what I do. Like Matt's like, you can talk to these people. I have no desire to talk to somebody and to try to do that. And that's fine. And I've done that. I have talked to people. I've done whatever. I have no problem doing that. I know that there's also, a difference in availability sometimes where, he might be able to do certain things that I can't do depending on the time frame. And like I said, I'm trying to get better with, with this and try to help in any way that I can. But right. And I know you're going to be like, well, yeah, in Power World, you told me to set up some beds and then I screwed it up by blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, well, because
oh boy, we're getting back there. Yeah.
No, I'm just, look, the point I'm trying to make here though is that.
Because John's like, oh, I'm like, hey, do we need like beds or we need something built here? And like literally we spent like what, like an hour maybe? Like I'm building this and then you're running over here and you're breaking it up and like what the hell are you doing? He's like, well, I didn't want it there. It's like, you stupid asshole.
No, look, because here's the thing, right? So like in where he does a lot of this, like I know
and this is exactly what I did. I'm like, you know what? You want to manage the shit? I'm going to just step back and I'm just going to watch you.
And that's exactly what he did. And I did what I did and I was like, okay, cool.
The ship is going to collapse, but hey, I'll sit back and I'll watch
All right, okay, the ship collapsing. No, but the thing is that I get it, right? So, when it comes down to what we're saying here is that, if, for example, like asking for that help and like in that exchange, I never like there are certain things, sure, I don't mind asking for help and doing that. I know Matt, on the other hand here, I know sometimes doesn't want to ask for help and he just wants to do it himself. Now, I know that there are some times where I get it and I do understand that, you have a certain way to do certain things and that's fine. And I know you've been doing this for so long. But I'm just saying that there might be some times where if you need the help because something's going on, then I don't mind going on and doing it.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, this challenge, you can do one or you can work, through step 1, step 2, and step 3 if you really wanted to challenge yourself. I mean, doing step 2, I feel like you have to know what's draining. Like you have to know like what is your burnout.
Right.
To do step 2. But if you already know like what's burning you out, you can do step 2. But I think someone very easily could do all 3 steps. And it's not trying to like be perfect. Like, and that's not what Evolve is all about. It's not about becoming like, evolving into this like perfect being. Like, oh, I'm perfect now. No.
I love that, man. Go ahead.
If you're trying to do it perfectly, like you're missing the entire point of Evolve. Like our whole thing.
Oh, that's what we should. I think we should have a song for that every time.
But no, like evolve, adapt, and overcome. It's not about being perfect. It's taking those steps. to you're never gonna be perfect. No one's ever going to be like, yeah, I'm perfect, I'm good. Like,
Well, that's a bullshit lie. That's all I'm
um,
gonna say.
you're missing the point of evolve. It's about just taking those small steps and becoming better. That's the whole goal, is becoming better. And if you can work these, if you can work this blueprint challenge and work, step 1, step 2, and step 3, you're going to take those small steps into hopefully like not being as burned out or preventing burnout in the future.
Well, and I really like this statement, right? I'm not broken. I'm responding to pressure, right? So when I look
Under
at that,
pressure.
ding, 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 ding. No, so when I look at this, right? So you're right. We're not broken as individuals, right? So we have flaws. We have our strengths. Like, Matt's like, well, you talk too damn much, and you're like, you're damn right, I do. But you know what? At least that's something I can use to help. Let's say, for example, like this podcast, to help, talk to people and try to get them on the show, or collaborate or do any of that. And then Matt's like, I just want to be behind the scenes. Great. You know what? There are certain things that I have no desire to do. And I know he's like, that's fine. I'll fucking do it. Not a problem. So again, you have to know the flaws. You have to know your strengths. You have to know all these things. And then now when you're looking at this, like, I'm responding to pressure. Every day is a new day. And every day, comes with a set of challenges, maybe some obstacles, maybe some barriers, whatever you want to call it, right? Whatever that is. And that pressure of constantly, it's almost like, it's kind of like, it reminds me of the Will Smith song. I think I could beat Mike Tyson. I mean, I'm not saying you're going to go against Mike Tyson every single day and you're going to get your ass beat, because damn well that, yeah, good luck trying to face that guy. But like,
Well, apparently, if the money's right, you could beat Mike Tyson.
well, yeah, I mean, just talk to what's his face? What Paul is it?
Jake.
Jake Paul, right. No, I'm just saying that, you're going to have days that are great and you're going to have days that are going to be really rough. And so like those days that are really rough, that's how you have to learn of how to respond to it. And hopefully you also take it as a lesson, because maybe, you have to learn something to get to a point where you're not, feeling all this pressure and to do all this. But real quick, little evolve rule here we got, if you try to do this perfectly, well, actually, you already said that. Never mind. You did already miss the point. See, I already missed the point here, right? So the biggest thing that we're also saying too is that, one change, 1 week, one signal to your nervous system that survival mode is not mandatory. And that's the other thing too about evolve, right? So when Matt was saying all this, you know, it's all the little steps. It's not something you're going to take literally in one day and you're going to start working at it every single day and that's just going to be the way it is. No, like you have to, it's baby steps, man. Like that's how
Yeah.
you start breaking these habits. That's how you start breaking down certain things. So hopefully when you change or evolve, right, that you can work on it slowly. Because if you changed everything about yourself in a matter of, let's say, a fucking week, holy shit. Like, good luck with that, because
Well,
that's
if you put it in terms of like when you're exercising and you're working out, like you're not just going to go to the gym, day one and be like, "Hey, look how massive I am right now." Like
no, it's gonna take a while.
you're working it, little steps at a time. You go and you work out, and then as you keep doing it, your body changes and responds to the work that you're putting in. And this is the same thing with evolve. Like you put the work in, you take these little steps and you're going to make progress over time. You're not just going to take like, again, you miss the point if you're like, I'm just going to take one giant step and my life will be completely different. No,
No.
no, it won't. But you can make small subtle changes,
Hmm.
and the more of these little changes that you keep working out, you will find that you're evolving, you're adapting, and you're overcoming.
Right.
The whole point of why we're doing this, um, I think we could just pick a couple. I don't think we need to read read all these, but I like the second one of these quotes here. Burnout isn't the cost of ambition; it's the cost of ignoring limits.
Mm.
I like that one.
You know, I think I'm gonna do. See, I kind of I would just do two more, and then that's it. because I like the third one in the first one. I'm not saying that the fourth. Anyways, I'll say it like this, right? So if rest feels irresponsible, it's because someone benefits from you staying tired. And that's a good one because when I look at that, I'm like, you're right. I mean, if you look at, let's say, a boss, right? They're benefiting from you, doing the job so that they can get, satisfaction and they can get like the higher paying whatever. And you're putting in like you're busting your ass, you're doing all this, but again, you have to set those boundaries. You have to set those limits.
Yeah.
You have to do all this to make sure that you're not getting into that mode of burnout and this and that.
Because it's okay to take a step back.
Right. And just sit there and relax for a second. And then again, this one, you don't need more motivation. You need fewer demands. And I'll say good luck with that one when it comes to jobs.
Yeah.
But but it's true though. I mean, it's if you're already motivated enough to do all this, then in time, hopefully, yes, you if you have a good boss, I'm not saying everyone does, or if you have somebody then in your life, like if you're showing the effort, right, then eventually you would think that yeah, you need the fewer demands and fewer things. But I look at this too is that you again going back to the boundaries and the limits and knowing yourself and recognizing what it is that's going to help you instead of destroy you. That is where you would say, okay, you know what? I'm going to do what I can. Just like what Matt said earlier, like I'm going to do what I can because unfortunately that's just the way it is. That's just the way it is, and you're going to do what you can.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a human. I have limits and, just the way it is. Like I have to live that way because, yeah, if you're expecting me to do the work that, I mean, when I was working at the clinic, 107 people, that's 2 caseloads.
Right.
2 caseloads. So if you're expecting me to do the work of 2 counselors, I can't. So your expectation of me is already going to be damaged.
Right. And then, I'm going to say it, that's just the way it is. Everything's going to be the same. That one line in that song, it's like everything's going to still be the same kind of a thing. Like, unfortunately, sometimes you don't always have that control.
Right.
But again, moving on, that's why we're saying burnout is so important to know and recognize because when you're at a state of overstimulating and overdoing everything and getting to a point where you're frustrated, you're angry, you're upset, you're all these emotions combined, you just realize that you basically get the fuckets and you say, I'm done. Because you can't
because you can't rest long enough for your your brain and your body to actually process what you're actually feeling. Where if you actually took a break and you rested, you'd have a chance to actually process. And that's like the thing that's broken. And just wrapping this whole episode up. Burnout isn't a character flaw. It's feedback. And the feedback like only really helps if you listen before the system forces the lesson. Because evolution doesn't mean pushing harder forever. It means adapting to reality instead of denying it. Anything else is just self-destruction with a productivity filter slapped on it.
I like that.
Yeah.
It's a great way to close this because, burnout is never going to go away and it's always going to be there. So,
and if you're already burned out, it's only going to get worse if you don't deal with it now. You know what I mean? Like you have to deal with it. And you have to at some point, like, I think it's just being, we do have to kind of close this here, but, I think you just have to be honest with not just yourself. I mean, you start there, but you have to be honest with, if it's work, you talk to your boss. If it's, maybe you go to, cosplay events or whatever, you have to realize like, I have to take a break because if I don't, then, say it is cosplay. Like maybe you don't do an event this time around.
Right.
And in your brain, you're like, well, it sucks. I have to do it. Like, no, you don't. You can take a break for a season, even if the season is, there's one in a couple weeks and then there's one 6 months from now. Focus on the one 6 months from now. Take a break right now. This is what we're saying. Like, you have to do something, talking to your boss and saying, like, listen, I feel like I'm burned out. Like, I feel like I'm pushing hard and I'm not getting any rest here. Give it a shot.
Right.
Like, all they can say is, suck it up, Buttercup, go back to work. I don't care. Like, and then you know your answer of whether you should be there or not be there. Right?
Well,
Like,
that too.
if I heard my boss tell me that, I'd be like, you know what? You can go GFY, bud.
Just for you, buddy. I can even make a T-shirt just for you. And you could say to yourself,
I got a song I got to play for you right now.
Actually, Matt, yes. He's like, well, actually, now that we're talking about this, yeah, check out his Spotify. And you can find all about this.
There's actually a GFY button on the website. Nice little segue there, but
Oh, of course there is.
there is actually a GFY button that brings you right to that song in Spotify.
Yes, I think I pressed it on it once, and I forgot about that. I was like, yeah, I know. And you know what's only thing about that is funny is that Matt didn't actually ever want to, because we talked about like trying to make a production company called GFY, or like try to do like something entertainment wise, and then he's like, oh wait, I got a perfect idea, and then he creates the song, and I'm less like you, and then of course he like ties in a lot of personal things that him and I have talked about, and I'm just like. I'm like, yep, this is a good song. All I can say. But anyways, until next time.